and that oral image for you.
Sure. Well, just talking about creating an oral image, right? Um, I don't ever start with other people's recordings just because I feel like if I start there, then all the ideas that I could have come up with, will probably get replaced by somebody else's ideas, many of which are probably good, right? But there's a chance anyway that I could have an original thought. And I don't think originality is its own reward. I think that there's nothing wrong with what's been done for the last 300 years, and there's some smart people out there to learn from. But I'll often try to start in silence on my own. And I sit at the piano, that's what's natural to me. I'm an enthusiastic but clumsy pianist, but I can play enough to get around and play scores and things like that. So I feel comfortable learning pieces at the piano, and then I always sing them. I sing every line. And people say, like, yeah, but when you do St. Matthew Passion at the Symphony Chorus in Dallas, you don't sing every line. And I said, no, actually I do. I sing every line because I will really learn it that way. And I'll discover all these things that I never would know had I just looked at it on a page or even put it under my fingers on the piano. So for me, that's a big way of like, oh, that line could go like this or could go like this. I have to feel it out myself in my voice. And then once I have some idea of how I think it should go, I listen to other people so that I have an imagination of how it could go, or maybe better ideas than my own. And I think at that point it's great to listen to recordings and hear other people's ideas. Because yeah, originality for its own sake is that's just ego. There's no sense in that.
I have a question, Josh.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there, can you describe how you get the sound that you do? I mean, it's such a clean sound and it seems without effort. You know, I've seen conductors who get a pristine sound and it looks like they're controlling every single moment. And and I don't sense that from you. It's you leave space to sing. And I was just wondering, like, if you have, what's your magic? If you were to bottle it in a few sentences.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna push back on that framing of it only because I think that a lot of times we imagine that, and I certainly imagined that. You know, like with my teacher, who was Craig Johnson, who was just a beautiful conductor, and I always had this feeling like he has some magic, you know, that he does or that he knows that I could never have. Because it's magic, something that only magical people have, and I'm just a person. And the truth is that he doesn't have any magic. He's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful conductor, but it's not magical, and neither am I. You know, it's that straightforward. It's accessible to everybody, but it's an approach. Well, first of all, let's just say the truth. Desert Chorale is fortunate to be able to hire the best pros in the country. So 97% of the work is done by the people who are in the room. So now what we're talking about is distinguishing between the 97th and the 99th percentile, which is small potatoes. We make a big deal about it, but honest to God, it isn't, right? But I would say within that, if approaching it with a mindset of support is always helpful to me, and I talked about that a little bit today in the class, because so many of us are taught to control. And it puts us kind of on this weird pedestal of like conductor, and the everything flows downhill to the ensemble, and the ensemble delivers, right, what the conductor injects into it. And I always thought that was a bad model. It seemed to me that the conductor should be underneath, just lifting them up. Like, how am I going to create a space for these beautiful people, whether they're the singers of the Symphony Chorus in Dallas, who are wonderful, wonderful, whether they're the Desert Chorale artists who are professional and wonderful and amazing, or whether it's a beginning high school choir like I was working with this past weekend in New Mexico, really beginning. But they have something to offer, right? So what can I do to create a space for them to offer whatever they have to offer? And that's always the mindset. And then I succeed and fail depending on the day. There's definitely days when I feel that control, like demon, grab a hold of my soul really hard, and then I get a little brittle, and I get judgy, and I get like, no, you're not doing it right. You know, I have that energy like appear, and then I have to tame that and be like, that's bad energy. Let's not invite that into this room. But it's there for me and for everybody, right? It's natural. And that has to do with our ego and ourselves and what we think we should be able to do. And you're a yoga teacher, you know all about this. But yeah, I guess it's a mindset that's sometimes successful and sometimes not. I'm trying. Fail, try again.
It seems the thing that continually comes up is just a mindset of empathy. It's that technical control over the direction, but yet that willingness to be in the position of each person that you're standing in front of and think about the big picture. What do you want to communicate to them and what they need to be able to feel themselves? Would you say that empathy is something that in the relationship building process for you, that is a continuous just thing you work on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, big picture, I think music, the greatest power of music is to clarify that the boundaries that separate people are false. I believe that. I believe that music or art of any kind exists because, shouldn't say exists, but its greatest power is to reveal how ephemeral the boundaries are that separate us as humans. And we experience them very strongly. You know, this person is separate from me, this person is something else, this person is other. And I think in our basic spiritual being, that's not the case, right? And that's easy for me to see with people who are like me, but it's harder to see with people who are not like me in whatever way. So I have to practice empathy all the time, to remind myself that we are one human family and I'm not in charge of it, but I do have this responsibility to lift up this small piece of it. And that's the goal. And it'll always be the case that empathy with some people is going to be easier than with others. Always. Always, always, always. You know? But it doesn't mean that it's not required all the time. And then you balance that, of course. Empathy doesn't mean giving up your job, which is to make decisions, to tell people how it goes. That's all very clear to me. But you have to exercise that responsibility from a place of a certain amount of humility and, as you said, empathy. And I think it's a smart way to approach it. And I think people will get very devoted to you, potentially. I mean, not devoted to you so much, but devoted to the process, when it can be beautiful like that. But it doesn't always happen, you know, but you just keep making space in every rehearsal. This is the rehearsal when I love people more than I did before, even though I'm introverted and shy, or even though I'm extroverted and I can't listen, or whatever it is. Each of us has our own path to walk on that one. Sorry, that's very goofy. I'm from Northern California. I can't be helped. This is how we talk.
Thank you.
That reminds me of two Flummerfelt quotes that had just transformed my life. Am I welcoming sound or generating sound? And the other one was we're in the art, we're not in the art of action, but in the art of reaction. Just really listening and being fully open to the here and now. And it's really helped me control less and be more open and more empathetic, as we were just talking to. Being fully present, isn't that hard? Isn't that one of our hardest jobs? You know, just like,
It's super hard because you have to be very vulnerable. If you're going to do that, just like show up and say, okay, whatever is happening right now, I'm here for it. Let's see where this goes. I mean, I feel like the best performances, certainly in Symphony in Dallas and with the Desert Crown Santa Fe, have been when there's a conversation going on. And we say, oh, you want to do that with that phrase? Okay. I like that. That's not what I had imagined, but sure. Let's see where that path leads. But that only happens after a lot of relationship building and years. Yeah. A lot of trust building.
I have one more question. They keep coming, but this will be my last one before I actually have to head off. But I've spoken with Chelsea Helm and JD Burnett and like Enrico Lagasca, some of those people who just tangentially related and kind of know like their take on, from the singer's perspective, how to prepare to like get into the professional ensemble singing world. But as a conductor who's looking at audition materials and things like that, what are you looking for and listening for, as well as you know, the relationship aspect? Like, how do you judge, like, is this person going to be a good colleague based on audition material, stuff like that?
Yeah. So for those who don't know, the people that Chris was talking about are folks who sing in a lot of professional choirs, including the Desert Chorale. In an audition, I am always looking for three things. It's the voice, obviously. Person has to have a beautiful and flexible voice. Desert Chorale is not a specialist ensemble, so we're not an early music group. We're not only commissions. We kind of do everything. So the people who tend to be happiest are people who sing in a lot of different ways comfortably. And not everybody is going to cross over and sing gospel music equally as well as they sing Bach, as well as they sing whatever. But at least people who are somewhat comfortable doing different kinds of things, you know, tend to be the best fit for us. So that's what we're looking for in terms of voice. And then in terms of the other two things are head. I'm always looking for people who are intellectually curious. That doesn't mean like high IQ, or it doesn't mean like brainiacs who know how to solve puzzles or know a lot about music theory. It's more like, it's just a mental approach to life. Like, I'm curious to learn more. I'm open-minded. I'm not so brittle that I can't give and receive. You know, so it's kind of a mindset that I'm trying to find out. And then the other piece of it is the heart piece. And that's really hard to assess in a short 10 minutes. But I'll always ask things like, what do you love? What are you passionate about? Because you can learn a lot about a person, you know, briefly, if you just ask them open-ended questions and say, what are you about? And then I do lots of reference calls. And they're almost always like only from people I know, because those are the only people I actually trust with reference calls. So if you've worked with somebody that I've worked with, then I call that person, that kind of a thing. Yeah. And then for like something like symphony corps, it's totally different because that's a volunteer ensemble. And so then you're looking for a totally different scenario where you want the voice, but also the ability to commit, because these are people who are balancing a lot in their lives. You know, some are music teachers, some are not, some are just regular civilians. So there's that piece of it as well. And then, of course, you know, the head and the heart play a role there with volunteers as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually have a question. So I am lucky enough to get to be in rehearsals with you often. And in that time, I've noticed that you time things well, like you gauge things well. And I've been with different directors in the past who, they all have different philosophies in terms of how many times am I going to work on this one section until it's perfect? You know, some say, you know, there's a limit, like if we can't get it in the first couple tries, we're going to move on to something else, come back. Others say, no, we're going to do it until we nail it, and then we're going to do it 5 more times. Where do you range? Because when we're in rehearsals, everything just seems so smooth and perfect, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it depends on the culture of the group. I learned when I went to Texas, I'm from California, and there I would say we have less of an appetite for drill than Texans do. The Texans that I've learned from seem to be very willing to be told to do things again and again and again, and would absolutely do it. So I learned from that. And so when I'm working with that group, in particular symphony chorus that you guys know, I might be inclined to repeat things multiple times, more than if I was working with a different kind of group. But I definitely think that there's a moment where you gotta like beat a retreat, you know, and if you're empathetic to what's happening in the room, you'll be able to sense like, okay, this is diminishing returns at this point. And if the ensemble's failing to do something, I think, I don't want to say it's the conductor's fault, because like, let's not get caught up in fault, but it is the conductor's problem to solve. So sometimes I'll say something like, you know, we're not there. We're trying to do this thing, it's not there yet. the last thing I want to do is tell them that it's fine and move on, because that's a lie. And I don't think lies serve us in that way, right? And as soon as you lie to the ensemble, they're going to know. They'll know it's not right, and you've just said it's right, and now you've broken trust with them. So instead, we'll say something like, I don't think this is there right now. I'm going to take this back and think about a different way to approach it. And so then it becomes a we thing. Like, this is what we're going to solve together, but I don't think it's going to be this second. Let me think about it some more. And then you actually have to do that, by the way. You have to actually think about it and come up with a solution as best you can and try again the next time and let it be the first thing that you do so that you're actually like follow through. But I think it's really dependent on the ensemble and the culture that you have in your school, in your ensemble, whatever it is. Everybody's going to be different. But Texans like to work hard. That's been my takeaway of being 11 years in that state. It's that they're willing to buckle down.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you.
Well, maybe we're at the end of this. Does that seem about right? It's lovely to see you guys, Symphony Chorus friends. Thanks for being here. Percival, best of luck. We know that you can't talk or be seen, but we know you're here. So wish you tons of success, and you know how to reach out to me. You know how to find me if you need to. And I'll be seeing you, Gabrielle, in a little bit, and I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Jacqueline, anything else?
No,
Anything else? Great.
I'm just so grateful to have you here, and I always love listening to you talk to ensembles and conductors. I've admired it for years, so super excited and looking
Great.
forward to your score study classes that you're going to give and other things that we'll chit chat about.
I dig that. All right.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.